the Sioux Empire Podcast presents Perlocution Podcast, idle chatter about thoughts that matter, with your host, White Boi.
What up? It's White Boi here on Perlocution with obviously Robert's here in the room, and we have Mr. Adam Wilka for a little conversation on
Hello, I'm Adam.
On God stuff. I guess it's not so much God stuff, but more people who grew up in church, or someone who has grown up in church, or a couple people who've grown up in church, and then at some point in time said, "Hey, man, this is I don't know if this seems kind of off. What does that mean? What?" But I was checking out. I was listening to a little bit of Mark Twain over the week, and I heard a quote that I liked out of Pudd'nhead Wilson. It says, "When I reflect upon the number of disagreeable people who I know have gone to a better world, I am moved to lead a different life." Not everybody is going to be in heaven. Is going to be all that. I don't want to be up there with Billy Graham. He's a user. David Koresh thought he was going to heaven, or a version of it.
Hey, okay, we don't know who went.
But if all the people that are trying to get me to go there on TV are going to be there, definitely don't want to be there.
I'm fond of the South Park interpretation, where all of a sudden everyone that has died is in a waiting room, and there's bishops and rabbis and imams and all this all standing around, and a little guy in a white shirt with a clipboard comes out and is like, "Okay, the correct answer was..." Flips up the page. Mormonism. Mormonism was the correct one, and they're like, "Son of a bitch!" The Pope is taking his Pope hat off, or his meter off, and stomping on it on the floor. It's like, "Welcome to hell."
Or maybe maybe it's some version of Valhalla, and it's actually just full of Vikings, Crusaders, and jihadists.
I like the idea that what dreams may come. People give that shit a lot of shit, but I mean, here's big enough for everybody to have their own private universe. There's no right, there's no wrong. Just you lived. But that sucks because then there's no punishment for people.
But then people think that. So that's I always think that's American heaven right there.
But I mean, there's no punishment in that case for anybody who's done anything wrong. So I mean, Hitler just got to shuffle loose this mortal coil, and then everything's all good.
Yeah, but you're missing the second half of that someone who is toxic and harmful to other people and stuff like that, their own self-hatred binds them in their own hell. It's kind of like I'm working on audio dramas right now, and what people picture in their mind is I will talk after because I have updates. What people conjure in their mind is so much worse than what another third party can come up with. So I always found that concept interesting. It's they create their own hell in their mind, kind of like when he goes to rescue his wife who committed suicide. It's we didn't send her there; she created this and put herself in there.
We might do both. I mean, we might create our own heaven and our own hell, because then you've got the DMT rush at the moment of death.
No, that's the whole movie. He creates his own.
Just because it's a chemical thing, by the way, with the DMT, that doesn't have to mean that it's not real. That can, for all we know, that's an actual juncture of science and religion.
What is real?
For the purposes of shamelessly plugging and crossing over. Not that long ago, we did an episode about near-death experiences on Macabre Grimoire, and one of the things I thought was really fascinating is they did do a study where in an ER, a critical room where a lot of people die or almost die, they hid an object up behind the light that's shining down on the patients to see if, when they would describe floating above the table and stuff, if they could actually see it, and nobody saw it.
Okay. But that could, when you're separated from your body, you're not seeing with your eyes.
It's not of this realm.
I've done mushrooms, and I don't want to go into I know it's a fun thing, but I don't. When I say I've done mushrooms, I don't mean man, me and my band of hairy friends got in our bus and went to Colorado, and no, I've I did mushrooms out in the woods one time, and just sort of contemplated, and I've done it a few times since, and there are other doors of perception. I'm convinced of that, And that is actually a huge part of why I still do believe in, like, something. even though I'm outside
I call myself
my
agnostic.
religious upbringing now.
Only because of the fact that I don't know. Like if I don't know, I can't say something's not there. Like the one phrase that stuck with me when thinking about God is somebody goes, "Well, how do you know God exists? You've never seen him." Like, well, have you ever seen a baby pigeon? No.
Have you ever seen nuclear fission?
Yeah, must exist though. I mean, just because you don't, but I can't. I'm not so bold as to say his name is this, and I shouldn't. I don't think he ever, they, she, whatever made us.
Yeah, I think the dogma
gave us
all
a rule
just
list of this.
like,
I think we're probably just a science project.
I think pretty much all religious dogma is like a combination of people trying to understand the world around them, and also like ruling elites trying to shape the understanding of most of the people trying to understand. The world
if you look at all
everywhere
the
in
rules,
history, not just Christianity, the rules of religion always tend to serve the ruling factions.
Yeah,
of
but I'm
those
talking
societies.
about like don't kill people, try not to be a shitty person, give to charity, take care of the homeless. Those are kind of main messages out of most religions.
Right. But like the nobility of poverty, which is like, you should just, if you're poor, you should just be rich in spirit and plod along poor and not worry about changing that fact or about the things that, but that is like a major Christian virtue is to like be content with poverty.
But that's only one side of the coin, because Christianity also gets used to say, why can't we do that right now? And you get into the concept of liberation theology,
yes,
which is a militant Marxist Christianity hybrid where
this is all just people.
This is where everybody picks up guns and builds a compound.
Dude, and I mean, keep in mind there have been extremist Buddhists.
Oh yes,
extremist Buddhists, which is by definition supposed to be like an oxymoron.
Talking about the guys that are catching themselves on fire.
Well, like terrorist groups too.
There are terrorist groups even to this day.
The point I'm trying to make.
Humans.
This is human behavior. And it's justified across a myriad of spectrums based literally on where you're from and what stories you grew up being told.
Mm-hmm. Like, I was sitting here. I've been wondering for a long time why don't we have extremist Christians like that do that jihad type shit, and then there's Klansmen.
Oh yeah.
Never mind. I answered my own question. I've had that question for better than a year.
There's Klansmen.
Dude,
sometimes the IRA. Christianity.
All the people that are in those compounds that you're talking about
has a rich history of inspiring
Christianity,
and even like in ways that you're not probably aware of, or you may not be aware of, like early Christians in Japan and how they almost overtook the country in the 1800s, and that's part of why Japan banned outsiders. Was they basically fought a civil war against a Christian sect that almost took over.
See, you need to share some more stuff with me so I can go Google these things and pick up books of this. Because I'm just picking up books of my own interest, but that is something that I'm definitely interested in.
It's fucking crazy that there's all these scroll. It's I've only ever seen the tapestries or scrolls or whatever once, where it's all these samurai fighting against all these other samurai who are Christian fanatics and stuff like that.
And they still use and
that's a version of
samurai heraldry and stuff.
Yeah,
though,
and it's
weird.
it looks like something out of fan fiction, but you're like, holy shit, that happened.
Why is there not a movie about this already? What is going on?
I read a really
great
cool historical fiction series
to obscure.
That is insane.
That was actually written on rice paper.
Dude.
I think it's called Nightingale's Lament.
Mm-hmm.
And no, that's actually a different book entirely. It's like Song of the Nightingale or something, but it's super good. You'd probably like it. I'll try and find a copy if I still have them.
Okay, now.
Oh wait, I wanted to make
to cut past before we start getting too deep into a bunch of random shit.
Yeah.
Sorry, this is a big rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And it'll I know it'll tumble away, but one of the main reasons anyway I wanted to have you on is because of the fact that you have grown up in church.
Uh-huh.
Like your parents went to church with you as well, or they just made you go? So this is a whole family thing?
We from his I mean, I'm sure there was an age where I didn't get taken to church, but I'm pretty sure I started going to Sunday school at 4 years old. Which Sunday school, for those of you who had fun Sundays growing up, is when your parents go to church and you are still a child, so you can't be expected to be calm and still for an hour or more. There's like a, at least at my school, which was also a church.
Good stories. Jonah and the whale.
Yeah. Well, dude, and like I liked
Goliath.
St. Lambert's, and I liked my teachers, and there are cool priests and stuff. But it was not fun to I fucking hated church. I always fucking hated going to church.
All kids do, though.
Always.
Because you have to stay still. Like, nobody wants to stay still like that.
Even if I didn't have like a crisis of faith, I probably still would like not go to church because I don't have to anymore.
I feel like you have it worse as Catholics, though, because like I grew up in apostolic holiness in Baptist churches where there's physical activity through church, and I mean, don't get me wrong, sit still, sit.
Are you talking about like the singing? And shit.
I'm talking about like just sitting in one place for that long and having to up and down, but you don't get to.
What was yours like?
Like people running, people getting into the spirit of the Lord.
That's fucking awesome. I would have liked church.
Jump, like I'm talking about, you leave church sweating.
I would have liked church.
The singing is just lively. The first time I ever went to bed, like my birth mother was Catholic. I went away from Catholicism because the priest told my sister when my mom was going through chemotherapy that if she did not go and repent her sins, that she would burn in hell forever. I'm like, that's a little bit much to put on a 12-year-old, man. That's a lot. Like, you don't tell a 12-year-old that. Had my sister crying for her mom's soul and whatnot.
Sorry.
But then the first time, but that was the sit, kneel, stand thing, and then turn around and I went to Baptist church for the first time, and that shit was hilarious. Like, little old lady just all of a sudden, wow, thank you, Jesus, and sprint around the church. And like, what the fuck is going on? I laughed. I got in trouble. But then after church, you get to go watch The Simpsons.
Nice.
So, I mean, how hard can it get?
Well, yeah, man, I went to church for probably like age 4 to age, 16. Because my folks split up when I was 16, and my mom. So my dad's actually the one who grew up Catholic, but I think there's a saying that goes something along the lines of like no one's more devout than a convert or something.
Oh yes,
right. So my mom adopted the church when they got married because my dad's family is like super Catholic, like that. There's a reason I got 90 billion gazillion cousins.
No condoms.
Nope. Natural family planning works, except for when it doesn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, she converted, and like she was the main reason we went to church. And then when they split up, obviously, she had moved out to a different city, so my dad didn't make me go to church, and I was like, I don't have to go to church anymore.
So when you went to visit your mom, did you have to go again, or did she care that you guys weren't going?
I don't know. My parents weren't like, my mom was big into going to church, and faith's still important to her to this day, I believe. And it's actually more important to my dad now than it used to be as well, I would say. And to my sister. So I might be
black sheep.
Well, dude, I don't know, because it is important to me. It's more just that I really, okay. Such a large and powerful institution that has been around for so long as the Catholic Church, it has clearly and obviously, with a fuckload of evidence going at least back to the 90s this time around, not to mention all that shit in Ireland with those orphanages, Catholic orphanages that are both state run and septic tanks full of children's bodies. That institution has been infiltrated by some kind of super creepy
criminal
cabal. And honestly, one of the popular theories is that it's a Satanist infiltration, which wouldn't that actually sort of make sense? Isn't that what the ambition of a Luciferian is to, corrupt?
That's actually a rehashing of Protestant kind of argument especially like in the United States, that's really popular. There's a whole, like, if you go on YouTube and you really dig, you can find like old documentaries that like different Protestant evangelical organizations made that were super anti-Catholic,
Okay.
where they'd claim they were like...
But we're talking about thousands of rapes that have been covered up, and
Continue. Well,
more than thousands of murders that have been covered up.
Like,
even in the United States.
The actual corrupt shit happening, yeah, that's real. I'm just saying the theory that they're secretly actually the Antichrist or whatever is a really common trope.
But it doesn't.
It has a very long history.
It can still be right. It can still be correct, though. I mean, the devil's greatest trick is convincing the world he never existed.
Who says the devil's bad? You're trusting the same book that says that. saying that it's bad.
Well, where does that quote come from? People say that, and the only place I ever
I heard it referenced
was a movie trailer.
I heard it referenced.
I can Google that.
Fuck.
Right.
I swear I was told that it was a Thomas Aquinas one.
That could be. I mean, I'm sure it's from somewhere other than the usual suspects, but...
I'm guessing that the original quote isn't nearly as fluid as the one from The Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
It never is.
Delivered by Kevin Spacey, who, shocking, turned out to be evil.
Yeah.
Never even saw it coming.
You know, I was watching some of the newer episodes of Family Guy, and my respect for Seth MacFarlane just keeps going up.
Charles Baudelaire said something similar.
Who?
Charles Baudelaire. One of the artifices of Satan is to induce men to believe that he does not exist.
There you go.
That's the original quote. 1836, Quakerism Examined.
Oh, Quakers.
But at the same time, I also definitely don't buy into like I'm openly bi. So I don't, and I obviously don't buy into
stoning,
all of that shit.
Well, I don't buy into the Old Testament. They say
their own hatred God.
All that crazy shit in the Old Testament. Like there's one in there. I have it in here somewhere. I can't remember the guy's name, but like back then, if your brother died, it's your responsibility to impregnate his wife, and if you don't impregnate his wife, you spill that seed. God will strike you down. Whoa! And then they're like, "Oh no, that's the Old Testament. That's not for us, but that's still God, right?"
Why
and they're like, "Yeah." I'm like, so he's allowed to be. That's like the crazy period. Is that like the White Album? I mean, what is that? You get to come back now, and because this little hippie dude came around and sold something, and he said he was your son. Like, how do we know that's not him? Just it's like your dick friend that comes around trying to do something nice now after he shaved half of your head while y'all were drunk. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know. I'm off topic, but okay. At what point, I feel like most people who have gone agnostic or atheist that have a high intellect or a lot of education in the Bible, have actually, like you said, read the whole book. You actually know what's in it. You sat and you listened through sermons and sermons and sermons. At what point in time can you actually think back to the time
where the schism started to
where
happen
it just
for me?
where you just kind of where you're hitting the turn of your head moment where you're like he was in a fish the whole time.
It actually wasn't okay. It wasn't the stories because again, the way I was raised was to just sort of some of the stories were accepted to just be stories that had meaning. I'm wiggling my hands emphatically for those who aren't seeing me. But, it was more about the church's history of the church, which is what I first grew up with. And then, the significantly more citable, actual history of the church, which I didn't really become familiar with.
Is there
one of my favorite classes in high school was anything. I loved anything to do with history. We had a great history teacher. I was in all the AP courses, so I got way into world history and stuff.
See, and that's really weird.
And it was inevitable that the world history was sometimes
they taught y'all about Columbus though. Thomas was he said all this stuff the stuff I'm running across. Why did they tell me this in high school? They buried that
Thomas
shit.
is actually quite a bit older than me.
But I
So,
mean,
like,
but your history,
we went to the same high school,
history
but
in
also-
a Catholic school is like, I mean, as long as it's not about the Catholic Church, it's taught you. They don't pull out any of the speed bumps. They like stuff I didn't learn and hit. Maybe I just didn't pay attention. I don't know, but I don't believe that I was taught half of the stuff about Nixon that went on. I don't.
Oh, yeah,
I didn't
no.
remember. I didn't hear anything
Yeah.
about Watergate and all that stuff whenever I was in school. But they teach that stuff in Catholic school. This is kind of weird to me that they would kind of haze their own. It's not weird to me because nobody wants to be seen in their worst light, but kind of haze their
feel
own
like they
history
did.
over.
I feel like, I mean, in my opinion, as far as U.S. history goes, I still, looking back on it, definitely received like a sanitized version of it. But less so the history of the church in my history classes at O'Gorman. And like, there was this, okay, for example, when I was in junior high sometime, I wrote this long and detailed research essay from the approved books about Saint Sierra, Father Sierra. I don't remember, he was like I think he was one of the original Jesuit priests who like started a bunch of monasteries or missions. Yeah, that was the word. And you know, like I wrote a report about this guy and what a great guy he was, and like how the missions even set up farms where the locals could help them grow food, and when they converted to Christianity, the locals would be like, who had been enslaved would be free eventually. Is like, you know, like the, oh, hooray for Saint Sierra, he was both freeing people from slavery while also making them Christian. But like, then you learn the real history of that, and it's like, yeah, this dude was kind of like the propaganda man for like enslaving Indians and then occasionally baptizing some and freeing them from their forced servitude.
There's a very strong undercurrent of imperialism and colonialism that runs through missionary work, even to this day.
Right. And like that was for me, that was the moment where I started to look more into that, and that's when I was like, dude, these guys were all just fucking justifying military force while quoting scripture. All
Barbarism.
Like
using
a lot of the church that exists in South and North America was built on conquest. That's an undeniable fact, and you wouldn't know it to listen to the church itself. And
oh no, they came and they helped us have Thanksgiving
and
dinner.
there you go, they're fucking lying to me, and I don't like when people lie to me. I mean,
yeah, mine cracked. I think I went from being Catholic. I grew up in foster homes, so as you move around, you change religions with the families. Went from being Catholic with my mom to being Baptist, and I went to Apostolic Holiness. And I sought the Holy Ghost, and I don't know if you know what that means. It's
like this Holy Spirit?
You actually you sit there and you pray diligently, and you weep, and you celebrate the Lord and all that, and then you run around and you do all the crazy stuff
to try
with everybody
to
else.
Feel this like,
and then you end up stammering and speaking in tongues. That's where you see people on doing all that. They're supposed to be speaking in the Spirit. I'm not going to say what I feel about it now, but I wouldn't go back to doing it again.
We would have called my church would have called that probably like wrong.
Yeah,
we were pretty
strict on a lot of things. You're supposed to be You're supposed to be God speaking through you.
Right.
But I did that for a long time, and I never really got it. And then I started going, I feel like I'm supposed to be faking this. Am I supposed to? Because like you get the stammering lips, but it's just your mouth moving because you think you're supposed to be. Like, am I supposed to just be adding my own words to this? And then the last of it was we had a missionary come through, and he was sitting there having a conversation that he was get all into it. And, like, I remember seeing my preacher at one point in time. His name was Miles Miller. He got shot in the head as a child or as a younger guy in the back of the head. The guy had a gun at him. He said, "Well, shoot me." Then he turned around. And the guy shot him, and the bullet came up and hit him in his teeth.
Ouch.
And ended up he lived through it, and no major problem. It just right to the back of the neck, into the mouth, and
Jeez.
he had dentures, and he used to get into it. And when he was preaching, one time I saw him do this. His dentures shot out of his mouth. He caught him in midair, stuck him in, and just kept going. Well, I used to sit in the front row with these people. I'm the only black person in this town. Not the city, not the church, the only person in town. VV, Indiana, Google this shit. Probably still the only black person who's ever been there. But the traveling guy was sitting there, he's going at it on the pulpit, and he goes, he said something, he was talking about the devil, and he said, and that ignorant nigger is something about the back door, and I heard nigger. Whoa. Done here.
Did you just leave?
No, I got kicked out of the house probably 2 months later.
Jesus fuck, man.
Yeah,
That sucks.
I got myself kicked out of the house. I burned up something I wasn't supposed to, and they booted me out of the house. That's the last time I went to church. I would stay home. Like at church was like an hour away, so I just stay home. I wouldn't be ready for the time. They'd leave you if you weren't ready. So I just wait, and they'd all go, and I'd go play in the woods.
See, some of my relatives, I can still be like, I can still have my arm twisted into going to church because I haven't had anything fucking dramatic like that.
I want to heckle a preacher. Like, it's so bad in me right now that I will play the part of Lucifer while I'm in church, but I don't go out of respect because that's just because it's not my thing doesn't mean that I should go ruin it for other people, because it does bring. I mean, if that's the only reason you're not murdering people is because you're afraid that your imaginary friend is going to send you to a hot place when you die, believe all you want, because if they don't believe it, they're going to start murdering people. So, I mean, let it go. It doesn't really...
those kinds of people probably murder people anyway.
Hey, man, if that stops them from murdering as many people...
are speaking to them.
If that's their morality compass, is what this guy up here that they can't see is telling them what to do, let them have it. I'm not going to... But I feel like I'm violating, like, if I go in there and start messing with other people's shit. But I would love to go and heckle a preacher. Especially a southern preacher. But you get in fights for shit like that.
There's still some really, really... good people I know who their faith is important to me, and so it's almost more like those people. Like, I don't really have a Catholic faith, but like I still value some of those people's faith just because they're people I love, and you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
like I said, I'd like to go heckle, but I'm not going to.
Well, dude, we could make a skit of you doing that. That'd be fucking hilarious.
It's so weird to me, like
with your ukulele,
like old black women.
Shut the fuck up.
Old black women are the most religious people you will ever meet in your life. Like, I mean, if you tell her that Jesus is not real or that it was made up, like, she'll kick you out of her house. Like, her son might beat your ass in the front yard. And the way that that's the other thing that kind of drove me away, is started learning world history and like learning the way that slaves were controlled through use of the Bible. Be like, oh, I don't know if I can get behind this. Then I gotta get behind slavery, because there's things in there that, I mean, they were twisted out of, everybody twist the verses to whatever they want them to be, but they were twisting these verses to control people into like
the
being
story
slaves.
of Rebecca or whatever, who God like told her like, hey yo, you should go be a slave. Like, that's like a story in the Old Bible, Old Testament, that I'm sure was...
It's hard to get behind that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I did like the story about Jonah until I found out, like, wait a minute, man. Whales don't have just air bubbles inside of them you can live in. That's not real. And then, no, these are real, but no, I don't know, man. The giant thing, maybe it's just a really tall dude. You know how people embellish things. But
which perhaps brings us to the Leviathan. We got to find us some Ezekiel quick. I think it was Ezekiel. Are you familiar?
So that was the crack, and that was the crack that started making you not want to go. And then just after your dad stopped going, and you just didn't.
Dude, fucking being alive was what made me not want to go. It was just an inevitable part of my life.
You're talking about just being bored in church, or just thinking it's trash and you don't want to do it.
Bored in church.
In the end, I think in the modern world, that is the ultimate enemy of organized religion. Is not so much like anger and like people who are dead set against the church. That still only makes up like less than 1% of the population. Like, if you look at like even people, if you don't even go by that, if you go by number of avowed atheists, that's like
you're talking about
1% of the population or less, especially like in the United States. But the people that say that they are spiritual but not religious, that's huge, and that's the real like phantom menace to these different organized churches.
Oh, even
is because
more.
that's devouring and assimilating like the entire population because it's just.
That's basically, ain't that agnostic though? Like you think there's something there, but you or
Not
saying you
necessarily.
believe like
Agnostic is more towards the side of not being sure if something's there.
that's. I mean, that's my thing. I don't know. Like
Whereas
my friend
spiritualist
Brandy, she
is
said,
like-
"I love Jesus like I love Bob Marley." Guy had a lot of really good things to say. He was a really good dude, and he meant really well. And they just tortured him, unfortunately. You know, I mean, and she's like, I know it seems kind of irreverent, but I mean, they both had a really good message. So I mean, at one point in time, she was atheist. That's how I never could understand how she twisted. Like that's what originally gave me the idea for this, as far as this form of interview.
I don't think that. I get what you're saying with the spiritual thing. Although those people who say they're spiritual but aren't religious owe nothing to the church because they don't proclaim loyalty to it. I think the number that you want to be concerned about from that perspective would really be the vast number of people who identify as religious but don't go to fucking church.
Ever.
Dude, there are so many, especially like to anybody who opposes, there are so many fucking people who just they justify bigotry while saying, you know, my religion teaches this, and they themselves are not actually active participants in that religion.
We're talking about the people that don't want to make cakes and whatnot.
Yeah, dude, I met so many people like that where it's like, dude, you don't even go to church. You're just being an asshole, man.
You saw somebody else on TV get away with doing this, so it's like the one lady that didn't want to stamp the marriage licenses or whatever because it went against her faith. No, they just had somebody else do that part of her job.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure she's still working at the same job. Can't fire over religious beliefs. That's harassment.
You can if you're. Well, it's also a violation of church and state for a government employee to.
You're not wrong.
Not do their job because of their religious beliefs.
Yes.
That's a clear-cut violation of the separation.
I mean, you look at in Minnesota, like the high Muslim population in the Twin Cities who don't want to handle like alcohol and pork products and stuff like that when they're checking people out, or the taxi drivers that don't want to take drunk people and refuse them service. And
can you do that?
Yeah, Minnesota.
The courts said they can't.
Man, Minnesota's just never going to be a drinker's state because before them it was all the whatever kind of religion where you can't have booze on Sunday.
Is that Mormonism?
Sold 3-2 beer. No, something different. There's a version.
Presbyterian or Lutheran?
Maybe, I don't know. I just know that Minnesota's historically been not friendly to the drinking man.
I'm pretty sure it
reminds me of another Twain quote.
Minnesota.
It reminds me of another Twain quote. He said, "My father was a Saint Bernard. My mother was a collie. Me, I'm Presbyterian." I don't know. It just popped in my head because of the fact that you just said that.
I don't understand that, but I enjoy it.
He's just talking shit. Somebody must have asked him, "What are you religious?" Like, well, my father was a Saint Bernard. What?
All right, I need to find Ezekiel.
What specific thing are you trying to hunt down?
Leviathan.
The
quote.
Leviathan. Yeah.
They claim it's a real animal in there?
Oh,
it might have been.
It's more like their description of the Leviathan. So, my dad is the one who introduced me to this theory. He just came to me with the Bible one time. I'm pretty sure he was smoking.
Referenced in the book of Job, the book of Psalms, the book of Isaiah, and the book of Amos. His cookies are amazing in that book, by the way.
The actual biblical description of it, though, my dad made the case that, like, convincingly to me at the time, that, like, maybe the Leviathan is like a submarine.
That's what they talk about. Like ancient, if you watch Ancient Aliens, they have a whole thing about how angels that might have been like aliens. And I mean, the whole God thing could have just been we got seated, so then somebody went up there.
Popularized by that book, The Chariots of the Gods, and that idea had been around before that, but that's the one that really brought it like into the.
That same guy is on Ancient Aliens like all the time. The dude who wrote that.
Sure.
Yeah.
That guy's gonna cash a paycheck somewhere.
Is that George? Is that the dude with the weird
It's not
hair?
the same guy.
Okay.
The gentleman who would have written that book is much older because that book came out in like the mid '80s or early '80s, I think.
And then here's one that, like, again, like the argument's like it could be a flying saucer. Now it came to... Wait, should I do it all dramatically? I'm actually pretty good at it.
Go for it. A dramatic reading.
Now it came to pass in the 30th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of the month, as I was among the captives by the river of Shebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. In the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of King Jehoshaphat captivity. Sorry, I'm not pronouncing that name.
Jehoshaphat?
Maybe.
Nebuchadnezzar?
Okay, here we go. And I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof, as the color of amber, out of the midst of the fire. Also out of the midst therefore came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man, and every one had 4 faces, and every one had 4 wings, and their feet were straight feet, and the soles of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on the 4 sides, and they had they 4 had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joined one to another. They turned not when they went. They went every one straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, they 4 had the face of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and they 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. They 4 also had the face of an eagle. Like, what the fuck is that, man?
Sounds like a helmet.
Right? Like, I don't know, Power Rangers?
It's a vision, although I'm super impressed you found one that I had not heard referenced
this
before.
one, yeah.
That one's crazy.
I watched a lot of Ancient Aliens, so it sounds like a space...
That's like level revelations.
It's like a glider suit.
Shall I continue?
I want more than that though,
because
we can't like. I'm trying to figure out like. You said you don't go to church at all now.
I go for weddings.
Like, hey, I really want you to go.
Weddings.
I've been to.
If like. Sometimes, especially if it's like, you know, a holiday and we're all together, and both my mom and my sister are like, hey, you should go to church. Please go to church. Then I'll probably go. But I really don't want to.
But does it really help for a Catholic to go without, like, if you're not going in there to repent sins and shit, I mean, just going to go, that doesn't really help much, does it?
It helps
it counts. The most important thing is the Eucharist. You're receiving the Eucharist.
And that's not where I'm coming from at all, though, because I just don't think it's right. I don't think it's correct. I think it's a mistaken interpretation of a greater truth, just like every other source of dogma. But I go for the people I care about. Like, I go for them, and to me that's the only reason I'm there.
Back in the day when I heard that traveling whatever evangelist, whatever he was, when I heard him spit that wonderful word on the pulpit, I walked out that night and I had a conversation with whatever the would-be God. I said, I'm going to tell you what, man, let's do this. I won't come to your house, you don't come to mine. Cool? And he never answered, so I took that as a yes. And I haven't been back since. I went to a Catholic church to go to a wedding, but other than that, man, you would have to set me on fire to get me in one of them fucking places. I feel like I would set on fire if I walked in there in earnest, like, oh, I can't, no, it's too much. I do enjoy seeing it all. That's why I watch God stuff on TV, because that actually has, like, oh, I remember that. That was funny. I used to love seeing people run around like that, but the rest of it is just, I already know what I did wrong this week. I don't need you to tell me. Right. You don't need to repeat it every week. You know I'm out here up to no good. Of course you're going to tell me about it every time I come to church. That's all I ever hear is all the negative that I do. Why don't you talk about how I saved that baby bird? You didn't say nothing about that. Only about me stealing candy. Shut up. It's been a very long time. I just saw I don't really talk to my family at all.
Yeah.
And I just saw that both of my sisters and my niece all just recently got baptized again. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're enjoying that. It looked like you just took a bath. It's really weird. oddballs, but I mean, whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes to stop you from murdering people, do it. If that's what it takes, and
Oh, bro,
I'm
can I
behind
sign that thing? Sorry, I have ADD. That's the only reason I asked. I just saw your name up there and I realized it's people who've been on here before.
They've been on the Sioux Empire podcast.
Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry.
yeah,
You
man.
can sign it if you want. I'm cool with it. I'll allow it.
So
I got people like that who've like I know people who've like, you know, as adults undergone like religious conversions, you know. There's a definite correlation between a lot of recovering addicts and finding
because of AA,
hardcore.
Yeah,
Right.
The 12-step program.
yeah,
Do you know that the original founder of AA was overruled and some of his research redacted by the program? He actually came up with the program as a result of his own self-medication with LSD. He
yourself over to that higher
LSD
power,
and
man.
psilocybin both have been extremely effective in helping people overcome a wide variety of other addictions, especially including alcoholism.
It's true.
yeah.
I'm always, as long as we're talking, dude,
Probably
to
make
me,
church more interesting too.
whenever we talk religion, I have to come back to those kinds of chemicals because I think there's a direct correlation there.
It's your brain.
I
Everything
think-
about religion is in your brain. So yeah, I mean, messing with the chemicals that go in there, adding to it.
I really, dude, you gotta try mushrooms, man. I think
Yeah.
you might change your mind. It's not just hallucination. Like,
I'd probably go full on acid before I went shrooms, just for the experience of it, and then I'd go and talk about it. But I got to do it in a really weird place, so it's a good story. Gotta
You
have a
should read-
full on night. What is that? Fear. I got a full on fear and loathing experience.
but that's okay. So it's one of those things you're gonna get what you're looking for. So if you're just looking to trip out, that's what'll happen. But like, if you're actually looking to like, kind of have an experience of the otherness, like you got to do it differently. Which is why I would recommend mushrooms.
I like your idea of microdosing.
Yeah,
I just heard a comic the other night talking about she microdosed for a full month.
Yeah,
Apparently, it's not the best idea.
you're not supposed to do it every day.
No.
She said whenever she started trying to let it leave her system, like she's a nanny, she had to go back to work. Said a little girl coming up handed her stuff. She's like, "Oh my God, thank you so much." Just sincerely, I love it. It's so great. Start
This
crying.
is the greatest thing in my life.
Walking around touching walls and all kind of different services and shit. Like, oh, this is great.
A book I think you'd get a kick out of is I think it's Robert Johnson's A Brief History of Vice. Super good book. He goes through it's like a history of how your ancestors got high,
Nice.
except that he's like I'm a drug historian, and this is back when he worked at Cracked, and he would
Go try them.
yes he would make these historical drugs. So like this thing that these African warriors used, where they would take coffee beans basically and then mix it with this type of plant fat in a pouch, then run like 6 miles or something like that. He did that, and then it's like your own body heat like cooks it into like a totally different thing that they used as like an energy boost for like long missions and stuff like that. And
Weird.
but then and then he gets into like the what he calls monkey wine, which is basically what this species of chimps, like some of the earliest that we know of, that actually purposely like store fruit up into the tree in order to ferment it and then turn it
Right.
into something they can get drunk on.
Nice.
And he's like, so that's probably like how our early ancestors, their very first exposure was before they were even human
Did he drink
to drinking. And so he made a bunch of that and made his coworkers drink. There's a video of it where he
Or
made his
somebody
coworkers
letting
drink
fruit
that,
go
and they're
bad.
all like throwing up and stuff. But at one point he makes soma, which if you know, that's the kind of mushroomy fermented milk thing from India that's used in the book Brave New World a whole bunch. And that is like, yeah, we definitely underestimated how powerful this is. And they had this one lady that's just, I'll show you the video, but it's fucking hilarious, and you should really check out the book because it's super fascinating, because he gets really in depth in the history of, which I've always found fascinating, of how big a role hallucinogens have played in like religious, and not
yes.
just religious, but like philosophical pursuits, like going way back before there was like religion, talking about like the Pythagorean cult doing this thing where they would have to starve themselves for 9 days and they couldn't have water for 3 days, and then they would have to climb up this mountain and then immediately drink this mixture that was basically these magic mushrooms.
Peyote.
And,
That's how you set up for peyote.
And they go on a spirit quest kind of thing that was supervised by priests and stuff like that.
That's exactly how you take peyote. You can't eat. You can't have anything in your stomach or you'll purge it.
There was that's like how mushrooms were first introduced to like Western culture was in a village in Mexico by like basically an American who at the time
I've heard the story.
I don't remember what magazine he owned, but the magazine still is in print today.
Yep.
It's obviously under new ownership, but this guy and his wife like discovered it and became huge. And
it was originally like hard to get to, and didn't they like buy a ranch there in order to like start?
It basically like it's like a happy sad thing because it did introduce this whole new wave of like enlightened people and research into this very powerful compound that certainly seemed to have a lot of benefits for the mind, but also like celebrities and basically Americans started jet setting to this little tiny like village and they just ruined it. They just they ruined life there for the local people.
Yeah.
The lady's house was actually burned down by resentful neighbors for like and like her like on her deathbed she said like it was her biggest regret like introducing it to Western. But basically, I think she actually basically said to that. I think she basically said to that white man or something.
We ruin everything, man. Not we. This culture. How much time do we have left?
Like 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. So, I mean, you can Bible rant if you want. The only thing I have left is one more Mark Twain quote that I have for the end. My mom didn't really, like, I don't know. I guess I'm not really, like, my mom didn't go to church as far as I can remember. Like, I don't think I ever remember mom going to church.
Yeah.
But they had to, like, go around and search for somebody to do her funeral because the Catholic priest wouldn't do it because of the fact that she hadn't gone in there and proclaimed all her whatever. And like, okay.
Yeah, the Catholic Church gets really stupid about different, like, burial things and trying to, like, control it and stuff like that.
That pushes people, it pushes the family or the person that you're doing it to away from the church, though. They don't want to be involved. I didn't want to be involved.
But that's part of the church's attitude is that you come to us because we're important. You are not.
Right.
It sounds very rich.
Dude, and...
Yeah.
That's actually, going back to kind of the mushrooms and the Catholic Church. There was this huge... And their need to control everything. One of the earliest religions provably known to man is actually based around mushrooms. Like, so, like psilocybin possibly, as well as other types, to where there are these like thousands of years old like stone mushrooms that are like reverent, like revered items and whatnot. The Catholic Church specifically, like under like the Spanish faction of it, they played a huge historical role in like putting people to the death for using these kinds of substances and like destroying all knowledge of them, religious symbolism, things like that. But like, so a lot of people actually say that this was a huge missed opportunity for the church because they could have just as easily tried one and incorporated that shit into the Eucharist and be like, yo, this is the flesh of Christ.
It amazes me that a church that allows drinking, like, I mean, because Catholics are known for drinking, right?
Yeah,
and they're so hard against having like contraception. Though I don't like that's the worst time. Like when you're drunk, you need that contraception.
See what part of that?
Otherwise, you're gonna have all those babies. But I mean, maybe that was the plan because like back in the day, that here when that's the way you get people to be attached to the land, have kids. If you have a family you have to take care of, then you're gonna care about your land.
Well, and you want to grow your ideology. So people who have your ideology, you want them reproducing.
Yeah, and then there's a chicken or the egg argument there, where it's just like you get into the anthropological like drive for that.
Christmas,
that it's just like it's not even like a Christian thing. It's like everybody in the ancient world. We forget how removed anyone that lived from like the 1950s onward is from the reality for 99.99% of humans that have ever lived.
Yeah.
Right.
And, like, everyone, even, like, you know, I look at, like, the county records in, like, the little town where I grew up and stuff like that back in the 1890s. So it's like everyone was shooting out kids as fast as they could because, like, you just accepted that, like, 3 or 4 of them were going to die, and you'd come out with, like, 11 or so.
And
that was your workforce to work your farm.
And at least one of your wives is going to die along the way.
Well, yeah.
Like,
maybe one more of your party's going to go by dysentery. You know?
yeah. That's
The Oregon Trail was a rough
apt
life.
point as well.
That is crazy though. Like, I mean, just seriously, it's in a lot of people's lifetime that's still alive that didn't have any. I mean, I remember not having a computer in the house. I remember when the internet was not a thing, but still you had radio and TV and stuff at one point in time without any of that. Like, there's smoke signals and walking to the next town over. Like when there were no cars or any.
It's like that. Another cartoon reference. It's like that Family Guy when they moved to the South.
Yeah. And
Peter becomes sheriff, and him and Brian are sitting in the sheriff's house drinking moonshine that the guy had offered him, and they're just sitting there, just like drinking in the middle of the day, and there's like, it's so quiet. There's just nothing going on, and it's just like something they're just like plastered the like whole time because why not?
Dukes and Hazzard. That's what I do like that when they paint the General Lee flag on top of that.
Fucking love the
like our connection through our media of screens, I think holds our society together more than anything else right now.
Oh yeah, it creates a massive. Well, it created a massive monoculture that I think peaked in the like 1990s, and then the culture has balkanized since then thanks to the internet, and that's why you're getting which we could do a whole show on, the whole militant tribalism between groups, you know, getting in the whole Dunbar's number, your group identifying against the other and crap like that that's splitting us up.
Could I run a podcast out of here? What you were saying made me think that, by the way. I wasn't not listening to you. They diagnosed me with ADD, okay? Things just trigger things.
I have a thing with my wife right now that I'm not taking on new shows right now.
Fair.
But if I have a slot open up, so all you have to do is assassinate White Boi, and you can take his place. We're like in the mirror version of Star Trek, where it's like you advance by taking out your co-host.
Can't assassinate Hondo, man.
Yep.
I can't assassinate White Boi. I'll have to kill. I'll kill Drash.
There you go.
Let him know I'm coming.
Well, not Drash. He's got too high ratings. What I need, Seth. You could take out Seth from Sioux Empire Podcast, and I'll give you your own segment. How about that?
Okay. I don't know who Seth is. Anyway.
Sorry, Seth.
It'll probably be easier to kill this Seth because I don't know who he is, so I won't have
This picture of there he is.
Or baggage. Yeah, but it's not the same as killing you or Drash.
This went dark fast.
It did? This is dark?
See, start talking about religion, and all of a sudden people are getting assassinated.
Just get real Machiavellian.
Yeah, it got very Machiavellian very fast.
Wow. All right, I don't know. You got anything else? Otherwise, I got my closing quote.
Go for it, man.
All right, it's from Letters from Earth. It's a short story that Mark Twain wrote, and basically what it is 3 of the archangels watch God create the universe, and they have a conversation about it. And one of them gets into an argument with God and gets banished for a day. In celestial time, that's 1,000 years. Well, his name was Lucifer. And he was writing letters back, instead of just going and, like, now that the universe is all here, stars and stuff, usually when he got banished, he would just go float around in space and just do nothing. But at this point, now they have Earth, and he's like, well, I'll just go check this out. So he's writing letters back to Michael and Gabriel and letting them know about the humans. And this is what he thinks about the Bible. It is full of interest. It has noble poetry. It has noble poetry in it, and some clever fables, and some blood-drenched history, and some good morals, and some execrable morals, and a wealth of obscenities, and upwards of 1,000 lies. That's as close as I can get to to showing my own feelings about the great book of King David.
I saw a Mark Twain based claymation, and I wonder if it was based off of that.
Is that the
story.
frog?
Yeah. What?
Yeah, the jumping frog.
It's a claymation where he's like with 2 kids and a fucking telephone
he's flying
booth,
around.
and
he's flying around, and he has a ship.
They meet an angel named Satan.
Yeah.
That's like.
I've seen like bits of that on YouTube, and I have no idea. I've never seen the like full actual
It
special.
used to be on HBO.
Okay.
I've seen it a couple of times. I was looking for an autobiography or like a biography of it, and I saw that, and I was like, you can't go wrong. Mark Twain, claymation, it's got to be somewhat...
Because I saw the Satan clip, and I was just like, what the fuck is this?
it made me think twice about the whole Satan thing, because, the only reason that I think Satan is bad is because the Bible told me he was. They only say that he exalted himself. They say that he exalted himself above God, and that's why he got cast down. But how do we know?
There was
for all we know, he was fighting on our behalf. Like, look what you did to all these poor. You created these things, and you're doing all this to him. He's like, get out of here, Lou. He's like, no, seriously, what are you doing? Like, you're killing these guys. Why are you doing it? Seriously, Lou, I'm gonna kick you.
Lou, I'm your dad.
Get out of here, dude. And because Lucifer was the most beautiful angel. You really
the
think
morning star?
He's gonna let him go forever? Everybody has arguments, even God in His creation. So
it was a Catholic theologian actually who posited a theory. It's not. This is just like it's an official theory. I don't think it's like acknowledged as the truth though. But that like, because they write theories within the context of like all of this is true, and essentially was that like hell needed to exist, and that like Lucifer is God's most trusted angel. And that's why he got the hardest job.
It makes sense.
That's just a I came across that theory randomly while I was doing some fucking random
blame everything on the poor guy.
Internet hole.
Blame everything on the guy. Lies are all his fault.
Tell you what is bullshit though, Luciferianism.
Really?
Fuck you guys.
Did you not get invited to their party?
That's just me screaming into the void.
Okay.
But I'm going to end with my favorite quote that actually reminded me of what I just said. Stare not long into the abyss, lest the abyss begin to stare back into you.
Yes, sir.
Nietzsche?
Yep. It's actually the end of a longer quote, which is also dope, but I don't remember how it exactly goes.
Yeah, the actual thing is like much like I just recently heard the whole thing, and I was like, wow, it's very different than what I thought it was, because you always hear the void stares back into you thing.
Right. He who fights with monsters should take care not to become a monster himself.
Yeah.
And which actually the front half of that quote, that first part, how I first learned that wasn't a complete quote was discovering the front half and Googling that because I thought it was super cool.
Yeah.
And I discovered the front half of that quote in Witcher 3, which is one of the best games I've ever played in my life.
There you go. The answer to all life's questions can be found in Witcher 3.
Yeah, video games, man.
Well, and with that, have a great week, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, man.
A production of theSiouxEmpire.com.